Welcome back to Daily Flash. I'm Andrea Jackson. We've reached a pivotal point in our beer chugging history. Our next guest says beer is dumb again. Joining us to talk about it is Emily Stewart. She's a reporter for Business Insider. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Okay, great. What led you to focus on the beer market trend?
Well, I think we have been talking a lot, right, lately about like what's happening in drinking, right? And you hear all of the time like people are drinking less, right? But like what does that look like? Because for some people that looks like abstaining, right? But for some people that looks like maybe changing their habits, maybe switching out regular beer with an alcoholic beer or switching out things that have a lower alcohol content. So that was kind of where I wanted to see like what's going on in beer because we know beer as a category is not doing great. But we also kind of, we want to know like what's happening with beer in general.
It seems like there was such a huge push for all the craft beers, and it seemed like you needed a degree to figure out what you were drinking. Why do you think some drinkers are moving away from the craft beer trend?
I mean, the market's become really oversaturated. If you think back to the 2000s, 2010s, craft beer was kind of everywhere, right? You had like the IPA drinking millennial, and that's kind of gone away. We know that craft breweries have been closing more that they've been opening, and it's just kind of like a lot of trends kind of moved on. It's not that people aren't drinking IPAs and stouts and sour beers anymore. It's that it's not really as special, like, somebody sits down with an IPA, you're not like, "Ooh, look at this." It's a little bit like foodie culture, we've just,
Yeah.
like, moved on by that. We also know that, like, consumers are pretty pressed financially, and some of the craft stuff can be pretty pricey.
That's true. What's driving the popularity of the less expensive, simple lagers?
I mean, some of it really is price, right? I mean, we know that consumers are a little bit pressed for cash, and so that might mean they are switching to kind of like below premium brands, maybe, or maybe they're buying in smaller packs. We also know like the palate is changing. I mean, to some extent, the IPA and craft beer trend is a little bit of a derivation from the norm. Like, if you think of your dad drinking a beer 30 years ago, he was cracking open like a light lager. He wasn't getting an IPA after work. And we
This
do
is
it,
true.
like, I mean, that's the truth. And I
Yeah.
think tastes you are changing a little bit more. Like, not everybody likes like an IPA, like not everybody likes the hoppy stuff, not everybody likes the sour beer. So some of this is just people looking around and saying, you know what, like I just want a normal, cheap thing.
Yes, something refreshing, something easy, something I don't have to think about. How are some of these craft breweries responding to this shift in this story that you covered?
I mean, some of them are starting to offer like a lighter lager, a pilsner, and that appeals, to people who again maybe not won't like the hops, and also for somebody who's a little bit price conscious, like they're a little bit risk averse, right? If I'm going to spend 8, 9, $10 on a beer, I want to know that it's something I'm going to like, and a lager, a pilsner might feel a little bit safer, and so craft breweries can appeal in that way too. That being said, IPAs are still super popular among their populations.
Yeah, I definitely think it can be an acquired taste, but it's also sort of a social thing. What do you think in your coverage of this story? How is the consumer behavior changing with regard to this trend?
I mean, I think some of this is consumers are going back to basics a little bit. We know that in general, kind of consumers seem to, in drinking, be liking a more basic flavor profile. If you think about spiked seltzers, right? A lot of them are like lime, lemon, watermelon. It's not something like really fancy. And I think that's happening in beer a little bit as well. Again, it's some of its price and some of it's also the lower alcohol content. A lot of these brand name lighter lagers have an ABV that's 4%, 4.2%. And if it's like a Sunday and you're watching football all day, that's kind of what you want. If you're drinking like an IPA all day, you're probably going to have like quite a day. You probably shouldn't do that if you have to work the next day.
Very true. Do you think this is regional too, Emily? Is it different, let's say, in the Northeast as it is in the Southwest?
I mean, it might be different regionally or even, I think urban areas, right? Like I'm from Wisconsin. I was just out there and like nobody's drinking an IPA, right? It's all kind of the basics.
Yeah.
In New York City, where I live now, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I can see that when you're in the bigger cities, it tends to be one of those trends. Emily, thank you so much. Go to businessinsider.com. We'll also have this on our website, dailyflashshow.com/FMI.